The Bad Batch is a 2017 film that kind of sells itself as sort of a Road Warrior meets Ms. 45 film, and unfortunately, it's neither of those. While I enjoyed the film overall, it's ultimately disappointing in the fact that it is not what the trailer promised, and as a subversion to that, I was not satisfied with what that subversion was. Writer-director Anna Lily Amirpour has an amazing grasp of the visual medium. The shots are fantastic. She tells this whole story through pictures, but the characters are not very well defined, and that's part of the problem. It's the narrative she's not comfortable with. This is very much an art horror sci-fi film. The very basics of the plot, some mild spoilers here. At an unnamed time in the future, people who are undesirables, people who refuse to conform to society, are called part of the Bad Batch, and they are exiled into the wasteland of Texas, which is no longer part of the United States. It's all walled off with razor wire and everything. They're left on their own. They're given a hamburger, a jug of water, and whatever clothes they have on their back, and then they're on their own. Suki Waterhouse very quickly falls in with a group of cannibals who take her arm and her leg from her. She escapes. Then it cuts to 5 months later, and she's in a town called Comfort, which is essentially Jonestown, run by Keanu Reeves, very much channeling Jim Jones. And then the rest of the movie, it's kind of a revenge film, but then it becomes like a detective film, and then back to a revenge film, and then a rescue film. Where Amirpour's strengths lie, in that with the exception of the Jim Jones-style speeches that Keanu Reeves gives, there's almost no dialogue in the rest of the film. She tells the bulk of this movie through pictures, through the actors' expressions, through body language, through the camera angles, through the way she uses lighting. Very much a visual director. Problem is the characters, especially Waterhouse's character, they don't hold up. At the beginning of the film, when she is dealing with the cannibals, she shows herself to be very smart, very resourceful. Throughout the first half of the film, she's this way. And then, I won't spoil it, but the final act of the film, she doesn't act right. She doesn't act like the same character we saw at the beginning of the movie. And then you have a strange way of what Amirpour is trying to push on us. Jason Momoa's character, Miami Man, is very much played as sympathetic and that we should understand why he is like he is. But he is one of the cannibals who took Waterhouse's arm and leg, and yet we're supposed to identify with him because other than the cannibalism, he's a pretty decent guy. And then you've got Keanu Reeves as this very porn-stashed Jim Jones. You got Jim Carrey almost stealing the movie with absolutely no dialogue. He plays this bum that seems to know a lot more about what's going on, and he doesn't have a single line of dialogue, and he basically steals the movie. In essence, The Bad Batch, it was sold as The Road Warrior meets Ms. 45. In reality, it's an art film that has somewhat of a revenge plot to it, somewhat of a wasteland plot to it, and it doesn't commit to either. And I think that's the ultimate sin of The Bad Batch. It doesn't commit to its ideas. That said, though, it wears its inspiration on its sleeve. Escape from L.A., The Road Warrior, Ms. 45, even Death Wish are all obvious inspirations. And that's something that's very cool to aspire to. It's a very visual film. It's a very good-looking film. I was just not satisfied with the third act. I thought the characters didn't act right. In the wake of Wonder Woman being a big feminist film, this film, starring a woman, written and directed by a woman, this is not a feminist film. I can't really get into more of that without a spoiler, but in the third act you find out this is not a pro-feminism film. And that might rub some people the wrong way. I found what Amirpour was trying to do is probably trying to subvert your expectations of a revenge movie in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Unfortunately, those subversions were not satisfying subversions, so that was part of the problem. All in all, I recommend The Bad Batch, but it's ultimately disappointing.
Being good or bad mostly depends on who you're standing next to.